Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and today I'm going to tell you how I felt about the new documentary To Be Takei. This just came out last year and is on Netflix. I just found it. I think it might have just come on Netflix. I didn't notice it until the other day, and it is, of course, all about George Takei, who played Sulu in Star Trek, and he is known now to a lot of folks on the internet as that guy who posts all the hilarious Facebook posts. And believe it or not, they actually go into that a little bit in detail in the documentary, which I thought was pretty great. It is an hour and a half long, and it kind of follows George Takei in kind of a day in the life kind of thing. We follow him as he goes to the barber and gets his hair cut, and as he drives around with his partner Brad, and we see the kind of ups and downs and idiosyncrasies in their relationship. It focuses primarily on three major components, major elements of George Takei's life, and I think kind of balances them equally. As I said, it's an hour and a half long, and I think that it kind of gives each of these about a third of the movie's attention. The first, of course, is George Takei, the actor. The second is George Takei, the internment prisoner. When he was a kid, of course, he had to live in a American internment camp for the Japanese, and I really liked the amount of detail, by the way, that it went into with that. And then third, George Takei, the activist and the homosexual man. So anyway, this movie made me feel like studying up on all the original Star Trek actors again. I really liked getting this kind of slice of life for George Takei and learning a bit more about the man than I did, although there was a lot in here that I knew already and was sort of surprised by that. That's not a slight against the movie, because I have done some research into George Takei before. I read his autobiography, which, if memory serves, was put out well before he came out as a gay man. And it is really interesting seeing him kind of tiptoe around that. Not that I knew that at the time, because of course he hadn't come out at the time that I read that. I think I was in high school when I read that. And so, but looking back on it now, it seems like he must have been kind of tiptoeing around that. It'd be interesting to go back and actually look at that now and see how reserved he is, and how you know, standoffish he is, distanced from the reader. But the reason I say that it makes me want to look up all the other and go back and research again some of the Star Trek actors is because, of course, you know, I'm a kind of a Star Trek enthusiast, and like I said, I just really enjoyed getting more of a sense of the man, and such an up-to-date experience. This just came out, so I felt like I was seeing like the right now modern George Takei. I wish this treatment could be done for all these guys, because they all have really interesting histories, and of course each of them has an autobiography. I've not read all of them. The one I recommend the most, of course, is still I Am Not Spock. Shatner has a couple good ones too, but I like Leonard Nimoy's I Am Not Spock. His follow-up I Am Spock is interesting too, but to get all of his accounts of first of all, what it was like being on the set of Star Trek, and how he felt about certain scripts, and the kind of what he called the decline in season 3, and when the show started becoming really unsophisticated, is really cool. But also just his introspection and the way he looked at the identity issue of how much of my person is in this character, and how much of the character is in me now, and would I be anything like the same person if I hadn't played that character? How much does it define me? I loved that, and I would love to see sort of modern up-to-date treatments on each of the actors, but the ones living and the ones deceased. I mean, like, I'm sure there is lots to know about DeForest Kelley that I don't know, and even post-mortem, I think there is a reason to compile as much stuff as could be put together and make a movie about each of these guys. I thought The Captains was a wonderful documentary, and once again, I just really enjoyed getting to learn about these actors, not just from when they were on the show, but like what they're like now and what it did. And I guess the reason I bring up I Am Not Spock, even though that was written in the 70s, is who Leonard Nimoy was after the fact, what it molded and changed him into. And like I said, kind of just getting to check in with these folks as they're so much older now. One of the things that I appreciated most about this documentary and really took away from it was the idea that you're only as old as you feel, which I appreciate the fact that the movie never comes out and says. It's a message that I feel like I can kind of infer from it. But there's some brief stuff with Walter Koenig. I will say that there are a couple of people that I wish we'd gotten more of their interviews, but Walter Koenig is one of them. But anyway, who played Chekhov. Walter Koenig talks about how George Takei just keeps working. He's like Shatner. He just keeps going. It's probably the only thing they have in common. He just keeps going and going and going and never quits. And even though he's in his mid-70s, he is as active as he ever has been, and probably has as much of an illustrious career as he's ever had. The movie goes into his musical that is about his time in the internment camps, and he's not just busy, but he is prosperous. He's doing really well. He's as famous as he's ever been. And Walter Koenig says that he told him years ago, you should just stop and retire. You can, and our careers are over. And George Takei proved him wrong. And I actually thought his interview was a little sad, Walter Koenig's, because there seemed to be a little bit of a hint of Walter Koenig, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I thought I could detect a little bit of a note of jealousy of, I sure wish that I had kept doing as much stuff as you. And of course, not that Walter Koenig has done nothing, but he's fixated on George Takei does things. He keeps doing stuff, and you can tell that he really admires him for it. As I said, we get the idiosyncrasies of George Takei and Brad's relationship, and I found that sometimes a little bit awkward. Not because they're a gay couple, but because Brad seems, if I may say this, a little bit of an insecure and shy kind of person. He seemed really uncomfortable with the cameras, and of course Takei is not, and Takei would say anything, and you could tell that there was a lot of friction between them, and I kind of felt like I wasn't supposed to be there. You know, there's a lot of places where they're talking and there's a lot of friction between them, and I guess it kind of makes for good drama in a thing like this, but I kept feeling like I'm prying too far into the personal affairs of this couple. And it was really interesting, but at the same time, I don't know, me personally, it made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. It was kind of weird. I guess in a thing like this, I'm used to people being a little bit more reserved and trying to show, like, the best versions of themselves, and so maybe getting something so much closer to reality television made me uncomfortable. And I shouldn't say that's the intent, because of course it's not written, but maybe in a way that's the point. Like maybe it's kind of neat that sometimes we can get that sort of thing. It's like, it's almost, at the same time as it was uncomfortable for me, it's almost refreshing in a way. But anyway, like I said, what I took away, what I appreciated most about it, besides what I just mentioned with Walter Koenig, is all the stuff about the internment camps and what George Takei has done since then. I didn't realize just how much of an activist for different things he had been in, and that he had been involved so much in politics. I liked that he stayed active, and that even after he thought his acting career was probably finished, before the Star Trek films came back, he kept finding things, causes to champion and things to do with himself, and to you know, find some way to contribute, and not just causes to champion, like trying to you know, make himself feel important, but actually doing some you know, pretty good and important things. A lot of things in there that I didn't know about that I think are really worthwhile. My big criticism is I don't know that I care for the structure of it. I kind of think the movie would probably work just as well if it didn't jump between those three topics that I mentioned as often as it does. What it does is it'll get to a particular point in the history of the internment camps and also the acting career, and then suddenly it'll just jump over to the gay rights stuff, and then it'll get to a point with that, like kind of a linear point with that, and then it'll jump back to the other to another thing. It is organized, and I'm not even saying it's not well organized. I think I just didn't care for that structure. I think it might have worked just as well and held my attention better if. And not even that I was like looking at my watch and not paying attention to it. Just that like it wouldn't feel as jumpy. I guess it's jarring is the best way to put it. That I kept feeling like my attention had to keep shifting. I think it might have worked just as well if it went, okay, here's a half an hour about this subject and then a half an hour about this subject, or at the very least maybe like set them up at the beginning, like give us kind of a thesis statement and then move into those things in detail later. At the end of the day, I think it's a pretty solid documentary. I'm glad I saw it. I am feeling it, and I would recommend it to anybody, especially folks that are interested in Star Trek or are just interested to know more about George Takei. Of course, he's incredibly popular these days on the internet, and I'm sure that lots of people would like to know more about him. So if you're like me and you didn't even know this existed, it's definitely worth checking out. Anyway, thanks as always for watching. I sure appreciate it. I am Captain Logan, and I will review something else for you very shortly.
Do